Hi, and welcome to episode 77 of Whiskey, Wine, and Moonshine. I am one of your hosts, Miss Smart. I also have with me Lady Buddha and Sojo Verdad. Ladies, say hello.
Hi.
Um, okay. I was just trying to see if you were going to come on camera, Lady Buddha. How are you specifically, Lady Buddha? You've been out doing stuff and things?
I've been doing stuff and things.
Is she Mrs. Buddha? Is she Lady Buddha, or do we need to change it to Mrs. Buddha?
It's Mrs. Lady Buddha. Woo, woo, woo. Get it right.
For those of you who are new, who are tuning in for the first time, Lady Buddha actually hasn't been here for a week or so because she was off doing this thing called getting married. So, and having a honeymoon. So she is back with us as now a Mrs. So that's the little joke that we're all making here.
Word up.
And now that you're back, what are you drinking?
Well, so I was going to be drinking water because I was going to detox from everything. But I have some kind of a rum punch that I just kind of made, so I don't know. It's just rum and orange juice and ginger ale. Nothing much going on in it, but we'll see how it flows in the next few minutes or so. Yeah.
Okay.
What about that?
Sojo, what are you doing? How are you doing, and what are you drinking?
I'm good. I actually have some. This is from the Birthday Cake Vineyards. It's cheesecake, white wine specialty. I don't know. It's something for the Negro palate, I guess, because it says that it tastes like cheesecake. I'm not a sweet wine Negro palate drinker. Y'all know I usually like my other stuff, but I'm going to try this since it's at birthday cake because my birthday's next week. So I'm detoxing next week, but I just figured I'd go ahead and start this tonight. So I'll let y'all know how it goes.
Scorpio
Season, that's right.
Yeah, I got married in Scorpio season. What is that about?
You a Scorpio. Mm-hmm.
Scorpio. Wow. How did he manage that? Anyway, go ahead, Miss Smart.
Well, I'm actually not drinking anything because I had to rush to get here, so I didn't have time. So I may pop out for a second, maybe midway through, and get a beverage, or at the very least reach over and get my Chick-fil-A lemonade that's sitting across the room.
You can just let Chick-fil-A lemonade just sit and stare at you. That's like the ultimate.
I had to log in and get myself together, and by the time I sat down, it was like 7:59, and you guys were like, "What are you doing? Where are you at?" Blah, 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 blah. So I had to abandon my.
Nobody did that.
With Chick-fil-A, we would have allowed it.
Yeah, no one did any of that. No one did that.
No, that's what it was. Anyway, so for those of you, again, who are new, joining us for the first time, this is Whiskey, Wine, and Moonshine. You should and can subscribe to us on all of your podcast apps and what have you, including iTunes, Stitcher, Podomatic. You can also Google us and find our webpage. We're pretty much on all of the services. So go ahead and feel free to subscribe to us. We do this show every Tuesday night, almost every Tuesday night at 8 o'clock. And so here we are. Tonight we also, while Lady Buddha was out, Sojo and I did a really brief podcast where we allow people to call in. We tried that feature out. So for those of you who are interested in calling in, our telephone number is 678-701-5805. Don't call right now. We'll let you know when you can call in if we have time.
Yeah, and it is in the Q&A. For those of you who are watching, you guys can see the number there too.
Yes.
But Lady Buddha, we tried it out for the first time last week. It was pretty cool.
I'm saying.
I think she froze, but we didn't have any shenanigans, so that was cool. You want to tell everybody about our little mini cast we did?
Oh yeah, so we have, like I said earlier, this is episode 77. So we did, Sojo and I did episode 65 and a half. Because, we did it about, street harassment, because that was the topic du jour, and we were having all these conversations on our WhatsApp messenger thing on our phones, so we decided to hop on and just do a really quick overview of our thoughts on street harassment. Looks like Lady Buddha is back. Some of you may notice that the title of this show is Bleaching Black America, and you may have heard of that film through MoguldomStudios. I'm sorry?
Bleaching Black Culture.
Bleaching Black Culture, excuse me. You may have heard of it through Moguldom Films, and so that's what we're really going to talk about today. So I want to go ahead and get into it because I know all of us have a lot of thoughts on it, and I don't want to sort of wait until 20 minutes in and then we're all rushing toward the end. So, Sojo, what was your initial thoughts about the movie?
I enjoyed it. I think it was one of those things where, just like when we did the last film, I kind of felt like it could have been longer because there were parts of it that I wanted them to go more in depth with. But I think it was one of those conversation starters. For example, if you're a professor at a college or a high school teacher teaching, African American studies or something like that, it's definitely something that you can show to initiate conversation. So I did enjoy it.
Lady Buddha, are you back with us?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. What were your initial thoughts about your overall thoughts, about the movie?
It's interesting because my opinion shifted throughout. At the beginning, I was telling y'all I wanted to, I had questions and comments that I was writing because I wanted it to be somehow different from what it was. But just because I just had different opinions as it was kind of going on. But as it got toward the end, I was like, yeah, that's what I was talking about. That's what I was thinking about. So I think I think that they've done that both times with me now. That however I felt about it at the beginning, as you kind of go through it, they start to show different slices and different sorts of topics, and so they kind of try to bring it full circle. So it was interesting.
I thought as I was watching it a couple of times, isn't America supposed to be a melting pot? And so if we are supposed to be a melting pot, how much it's almost like by complaining about this, you don't necessarily want to be a part of the the fully melted pot, all of the melted cultures together. But then at the same time, somewhat on the opposite side of the coin, you can have a soup and still be able to taste the different flavors of the various ingredients.
Yeah, because I always think about it more as a salad bowl, even though they call it a melting pot, just because there are still some very distinct aspects in the community and in the different communities, and people want to honor those and keep those separate. But I think that still you kind of hit on the resistance I felt probably the first half or the first part of it, because I kind of wanted to offer a counter to the whole topic and to the way that it was approached. I wanted to kind of push back. So anyway, yeah.
Well, this kind of spoke to my childhood experience that I had. It was the first thing that I thought about when the movie started. And I don't know whatever year The Last Dragon came out. I don't know how old I was, but I remember we were going to a dance competition, and it was, like a national dance competition, and we were one of the only black dance studios that competed. And so after the competition was over, they had a social dance where everybody comes together, just a socialization type thing. Maybe I was 8, 9, something like that. But that was the year that The Snake came out. And so all of us during that little social thing, of course, we're with our friends, we're doing these dances, we're doing the snake, we're doing the prep, all that other kind of stuff. And then the next year, when we got to the dance competition, every single white company had incorporated the exact same dance that we had done for recreation, just among ourselves. And it was almost like to the point where they had watched us, taken it back, repackaged it, and sold it for a dance routine. And I remember looking at my mom, and I was like, that's our dance. And my mom said, not anymore. And so it was like when I was watching that, it took me back to that place, because I do understand the salad bowl, melting pot, whatever theory, but I remember the feeling that I had watching our stuff be repackaged. And so that's where I was able to connect with this film.
I think it was David Banner who said, or I'm paraphrasing here, that white America has a way of making us feel like our stuff has no value, so that we give it away.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and then they turn around and profit off of it, you know, often financially and creatively. And I think that right there is true.
Can we talk about all the people that they had in it? Because they had Lamont Rucker, they had Paul Mooney, they had Tommy and Cole. I don't know Tommy and Cole's real name. But they had Tommy and Cole, and they had David Banner. I mean, you know, it was just and they had Scarface.
Brad Jordan is what I like to call him.
Right, Scorpio, November 9th, just so y'all know.
Okay, calm down. Just calm
look,
down.
I'm just saying, I like to acknowledge Scorpios when Scorpios are doing things. Anyway, but Nas, they even had him on there. And I love that they got all of those, you know, different perspectives, because it wasn't just about hip-hop. I think when people go back and look at this, they automatically think of us as entertainers. And it, you know, it's so much deeper than that. You know, when you're talking about culture, they even delved into, I think Viola Davis was on there in a segment with Paula Deen. So they had so many different scenes to show all of the things that comprise our culture. So that was one of the things that I did enjoy, you know, was listening to everybody's bit of perspective. But David Banner did bring it when he said that part about, because he was talking about gentrification, and he was saying that, you know, we do tend to, as soon as we think our things have no value, then it's, you know, then it's sold as the newest, hottest thing. So yeah, shout out to David for that.
I think though, oftentimes we also give extra credit to mediocre white people doing things we always do. And I think back to, there's an old video from a conclave with a white guy setting out a hop, and everybody's hyping him up, and I'm thinking to myself, I've seen this time and time again, done by hundreds of black men. He's doing nothing extraordinary.
I saw that this weekend, and you know I did, because I sent you a message about that white Kappa. Yeah, there was a white Kappa.
Are you saying they get extra credit?
They get extra credit for doing an ordinary version of us.
Listen, he just slung that cane just regularly. He didn't do any extra shimmies, but he got a lot of applause.
Well, I think that's true sometimes, but I think that was another thing that they did a good job is showing some people who do a good job, and they're not necessarily trying to be black. I mean, I think that, for instance, Eminem is a good example. Like, that's somebody who I like listening to, who I agree can rap, and who I'm not offended by looking at him. I don't look at him as trying to do black. I just look at him as a lyricist or as a performer, and that's it. But then there's some people or some, you know, entities, and they talked about cultural branding. And I think about McDonald's. Like, when I was younger, y'all remember Calvin? And the McDonald's commercials, and all the commercials were like they're double dutching, and they were doing things that were black things. And maybe because I was young, I wasn't offended by that. I just was like, oh, okay, look, there's black people on the screen, they're doing black things or whatever. But it's like, now if I see a commercial, a McDonald's commercial, I feel like they're trying too hard. I feel like they're trying to do blackness or be black. And so I think that that's a clear distinction between some of the examples that they gave from people who just do well with the influences that they have drawn maybe from black culture versus people who are trying to do black or be black.
How do you feel about the
Wait. I want to go something Lady Buddha said. You mentioned Eminem, and it made me think of the Beastie Boys. But can you actually verbalize what makes them authentic versus a Vanilla Ice?
I can.
Okay.
I mean,
talent aside. But what is this? What would make someone appear to be more authentic than someone else?
They weren't trying to be black. They acknowledged they were white boys.
Here's a little story I got to tell about
genuinely like that type of thing. It's just like what they said about Tina Marie and, you know, Hall & Oates. They never said or tried to be anything other than what they were. It's just that their voice or their talent happened to fit into that genre. Right. They happen to genuinely enjoy that genre. You can see when someone's genuine about it, as opposed to a Vanilla Ice. It's just like when they brought up Marky Mark, who's now Mark Wahlberg, when he said he thought that he looked back on it and wished he had whatever little
He's
snide
over
remark.
that phase or something like that. He's glad he's
Right.
over.
He made a little snide remark. He never looked authentic to me. He just looked like a white boy with a shirt off and some abs, trying to rap. But
Right.
I mean, so I think that it's the authenticity comes in them not shaking off their whiteness, because I don't think they ever shook off their whiteness.
Right.
They just happen to embrace blackness. Speaking
Do
of
you
which,
think
how do
people
y'all feel
would?
about Justin Timberlake?
I'm indifferent about Justin Timberlake. Very indifferent. I know that he is a great production. He has been produced very well,
It's a great production.
and he's a great production. And I think that he has, and they mentioned this in the film, that when you produce for someone like Justin, it helps your career. It helps your own credibility. It widens your market. So I don't doubt that, like T.I. and Timberland, that they and Usher with that little what's that little boy Bieber. I don't doubt that these.
You said, what's that little boy?
Yeah, I don't doubt that these producers know exactly what they're doing.
Oh, they do. They said it in the documentary. They said it was that, and that's the thing that the guy said. I can't remember who he is. I'm trying to see if I can find him in the notes. He was saying, instead of becoming so angry about it all, like, flip it, make money off of it, like they have. They've recognized that, hey, I can get exposure, I can make money.
Amen.
I already know that, and they called out all of these white record company people like Clive and all of them, and they said, I already know that that's what they want to see, so why, instead of me getting upset, why am I not bringing that person to them saying, hey, here's what you want, go ahead and take it. I get the emotion behind it. I mean, I really do. Like Scarface looked genuinely hurt in his segment. He really did. Like, I felt bad. I mean, because it's like you could tell that he had seen a lot, and you could tell that he was disgusted by some of the things that he saw, because I think that he took ownership for the art. I get that. But on the other side of it, if you know the deal, why not profit from it?
That reminds me of somebody that I used to talk about some of our earlier podcasts, Afrolicious on Twitter. That's her handle, and she is always talking about the fact that it's not enough for you to be out there telling your own story, but you need to also have the means, the wherewithal, the presence of mind, the skill set to have the platform to tell your story and to own it yourself. And she uses Twitter as an example all the time, because she's like, we're out here tweeting and telling our own stories, but who owns the Twitter platform? And what is it that you're creating or building, so that when you archive the tweets, it's not just the Library of Congress or whomever else, and all these other people doing data on your tweets. You are doing it. You have the ownership. So, like, for instance, her and people like that are big into coding or just some sort of building, as an example. And I think that's important.
Did Brad Jordan and did he have something to do with Rap-A-Lot Records?
I don't know. Where's Phenom when we need him? No.
I know, right? Because that, I mean, speaking of the ownership and stuff, at least under the musical umbrella, I think there is some level or efforts to have ownership, even in stuff like our restaurants and our cookbooks and our recipes. Like, I don't know if you guys remember, but there was talk that Paula Deen got a lot of her recipes from people of color. Now, to me, I'm not giving that away. I'm just, and a lot of people, black people, don't give that away to anybody who doesn't share their blood or are married in. How Paula Deen managed to get somebody to teach her recipes, I don't know whether the person, and this happens a lot with black people, we're so happy and so thankful that white people acknowledge something that we have might be great. Here, I'll be happy to show you how to do it, massa. And then, Paula Deen is, rich, and her cook or whomever was suing her or whatever, saying that, I gave her the recipes and now she's rich. Well, you shouldn't have given it away.
Well, they talk about that you touched on something about how quick we are to share with other people, and I think that's also part of our culture, It's how we interact with each other. We interact with each other by team building and, sharing. That's just a part of who we are. And so instead of being cautious of who we share with, we would take a Paula Deen who comes and smiles at us and loves on us a little bit and says, "Oh my God, this is the most wonderful thing in the world. Let me sit at your feet and try to figure out how you do this," not realizing that person is sitting there, writing down everything that cook is doing.
But I don't know, because what's the role of wealth in all of this? I mean, if somebody is coming and offering you some money and you don't have any, I mean, it may be too far of a stretch to say, well, I obviously have something good here. Let me go figure out how to invest in myself or get some other people to invest in me. Maybe you just need something in the short term, and it's a good enough dollar figure that it makes it worth your while, and you're not really worried about the long-term ownership implications of how this person is going to benefit.
These people aren't offering anybody money.
Yeah, they aren't offering anything. And that's what Lamont Rucker was talking about, the difference between theft and integration. Like, the theft part is saying, and I think he used the phrase, "Don't do my thing and not give me my share."
Right.
And I think that's what makes people angry. It's not that I mean, there is a part where you do get screwed in because you signed a bad deal. There are people who are, in that position. But then there are other people who look up one day and somebody's got their whole idea. I don't know if it's an urban legend or not about that whole Matrix. Remember the lady who was...
Oh, it is.
It's an urban legend? Okay. That's what I said. I don't know if that's an urban legend. But the thing,
Betty Boop?
No, not the Betty Boop. I was talking about the Matrix.
No, I'm just saying as an example of.
Oh the original Betty Boop, right? So I mean, it's happened so often that when we hear about things like that, that's why I was saying I wasn't sure if the Matrix thing was an urban legend, because I heard it was an urban legend, but it's happened so often that when people heard it, they could believe it because it was realistic.
Well, and I guess that was part of, so back to my overall impressions initially, that some of my pushback was the fact that we were talking about theft, and then other times we weren't talking about that, but it seemed like we were lumping it together a little bit. And so that's why I liked some of those counterexamples that said, no, sometimes it's influence, because that's the way culture works. I mean, culture isn't stagnant, just like language isn't stagnant, and language isn't stagnant because people aren't stagnant. And so I don't think it's fair to assume that it's always going to be this very distinct sort of pockets of everything. And I think that we do influence each other. I mean, like a good example of that is just even the fact that the word Spanglish exists, because people mesh and marry those languages when they're communicating with each other. But at the same time, I just think that that was just something that kind of rubbed me a little bit, because I wanted us to kind of be a little clear
differentiate between the two.
Yeah.
Well, I think another area, and I guess it's sort of in between that, there was a point where they showed a white rapper, and then they showed, I think it was Ghostface Killer or one of them, and the white rapper sounded just like Ghostface.
Oh, yeah.
The person who was talking, I can't remember who was doing the talking, but he said that these white kids are going to emulate that white rapper, thinking that he came up with that. And I think that is a symptom in general of people, the default being whiteness started everything. Whiteness is responsible for everything.
I don't know if that's a symptom of. This is the question that I have for y'all.
Really?
Yes.
Okay.
This is the question I have for you. I said, what is the role of black amnesia and black apathy?
What do you mean?
Well, because we can say that, white people started everything and that's kind of a default, and I don't think that's true.
I think it is for white people. No, for white people, it is
no, because what I'm talking about is in general. This was a question that I kind of thought about, and I wanted to ask you all as I watched the whole thing, because I think about, for instance, going to jazz shows. And you go to a jazz show and you may have some black musicians up there playing, and the audience is not black people.
Right.
Right.
It's mostly white. Right.
Right. Or when when Color Purple was at the Alliance here in Atlanta, the audience was not black people. I mean, and so it's just kind of like, how much of that is our own amnesia about different things versus just, oh, well, we're going to default and think these other people did it. I mean, we just kind of let things fall by the wayside sometimes.
I do think there's some things that we let fall by the wayside. Like, I think, for example, with the color purple, I don't think that Black people not attending the color purple was because they were apathetic. I think that sometimes they don't see that form of entertainment as something that they're going to go to in droves. Whereas they'll watch the movie every time it comes on BET.
Right.
You know.
Well, why not? If they'll go, I mean, what, is it not enough shucking and jiving? Is it not a Tyler Perry production?
Because as I said that, then I also had to think, well, they will show up to a Tyler Perry movie. Like, am I talking out both sides of my mouth? I don't know.
I mean, I don't know, and that's why it's just a question. I just feel like that's why.
The other thing I think about, like when you said, like Molly and the twerking thing, you know, the scene that they gave there, and when Nicki Minaj kind of broke it down to, you know, it's the because of Miley, now twerking's in the dictionary. Like that do I have an echo?
No.
Okay, I thought I had an echo. You know, that kind of bothered me because it seems as though Miley created twerking, or she made twerking popular.
Because they create everything. The default is a white person came up with everything. Just like the whole situation with the Hunger Games, they couldn't even imagine, even though it was written that the little girl was Black. They couldn't even fathom. And at the end of that movie, when they listed all these things Black people were responsible for, a white person would never, even if they read those people's names and maybe saw a picture of, you know, that Black person and several of the team, they would never think that Black person was responsible for anything major. A great example of this is when on Scandal, when Olivia and Abby, whatever her damn name is, when they walked in, they were going on a case, and the woman who was in trouble reached out to Abby because in her mind, her default is the Black person in power has to be the white person.
Right.
Well, but the flip side, so to push back just a little bit on the Miley and twerking thing, I mean, part of that is, for instance, let's say it was Beyonce doing it, right? I think that it still would have been the opportunity for this big star that people knew to bring it into the national discourse. And I think that's what's different from, I mean,
Beyonce twerked before that. Nicki has twerked before that. That was my whole thing.
That's not.
They have twerked in their concerts, but nobody cared until Molly turned her chicken bass around and did it.
I don't think so. I think that for me, Nicki Minaj is not the same type of a crossover appeal as a Beyonce.
But they're on the same show. Beyonce has twerked before. She's on the same national platform. So her twerking wasn't, it didn't have a name until Miley told them it was, you know what, that's the thing. When Miley said it was twerking, that's when it had a name. Before that, it was just Black girl dancing. Discourse,
as opposed to us over here listening to Twerk Team and having our side conversation over here. I mean, I just think that's just different.
I think it's theft.
I think it's.
But who stole it? Okay.
I mean, I think it's.
If it's theft, who stole it though?
I'm sorry, what?
She said, I think it's theft, and I said, if it's theft, who stole it in that particular case?
Miley. She said that she was down in New Orleans and she saw it.
She gave credit to the people that she saw it. That's not stealing. That's saying I was influenced by these people. I did it on this stage. People are like, what is it that she did?
That's the whole thing they were talking about at the beginning of it. They were talking about how the white people will always say that they were inspired by, you know, whatever. And then when it comes to the time, like, wait, I got it in my notes about, hold on. Oh, Chuck Berry and the Beach Boys, when he had to sue them, because Keith Richards basically said in his induction to the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, I lifted every lick he ever played.
I saw that one.
He said that. So then it's like, oh, well, he acknowledged it, so it's not really stealing. Well, fuck that. Chuck Berry had to sue to get his part of that pie. And that's what I'm saying. It's the cavalier way of, oh, well, I saw this person down this way, and yeah, you know, this is where I got it from. But it's so... just, I don't know, it bothers me. Somebody in the comments says Jennifer Lopez and the buttocks.
Well, I have one more name to throw out into the into this whole conversation, which is Bob Fosse.
Give me more.
Yeah.
So Michael Jackson dance moves
Dance. Okay. Yeah.
are
Oh
said
yeah.
to be influenced by Bob Fosse. The whole Beyonce Single Ladies is said to be influenced by a choreography done by Bob Fosse, but we don't hear all the conversation about it in the reverse.
Okay.
So
And
go
that's
ahead.
one.
But those are two huge examples of big mega black superstars who borrowed from someone else.
Yeah, but we're talking about borrowing from the black to the white. From the black to the white. That's
Smart. Say what you just said again. You went out.
who, me?
Yeah.
Yeah,
You
I was
kind
saying,
of
but we're
broke up.
talking about we're talking about from the black to the white, in borrowing and making money off of, and appropriating and repackaging it as their own with very little, if any, regard to where it comes from, and people just accepting that, my God, they must have created whatever it is that they're doing, and that's just not the case. And a lot of times it's purposely done. It's not like this is a, oh, I was sleeping and the radio in my hotel room came on and it was a hip hop song and I was half asleep. I was in REM sleep, and then I wrote a song later on and it sounded like Marvin Gaye. No, you knew what you were doing. You knew what you were doing.
Yeah.
I wanted to have that Marvin Gaye feel. Oh, okay, you do? Okay, well, sounds a lot like it. Oh, I saw this performer late at night and she did this boo doo boo doo boo boo. I'm gonna go ahead. I think that's great. I'm gonna use that. And I'm gonna make a whole bunch of money off of it. They know exactly. I think a lot of them know exactly what they're doing.
Yeah, and I think with regard to Bob Fosse, I think that those are good, huge examples, but I also think that it's happened across our culture in so many different ways that I just don't see them in the same way. I mean, I understand what you're saying, like maybe they lifted whatever moves from a routine that they saw or whatever, but it just seems like it doesn't have the wide-reaching implications as the things that have happened to us historically have. So,
well, and that goes back to the fact that they were mixing kind of some of that bigger stuff with just ordinary influence to me. And the last part that stood out to me was the whole conversation about the misappropriation of culture within Black culture.
Yeah. I wish that they had done more on that.
Well, that was that last 10 minutes. That's when
I know. And that's what I was saying, how it could have been. It's almost like when we were watching Black Churching and they threw that little grenade about the black woman in and then just kind of went out, and I was like, oh, wait, we got like 15 more minutes of, whatever. I wish that they had gone more into that. About us basically messing up our own our own mark. Anyway, let me see what I put on that. I can't find my notes where I put.
It was at the very end. That was like one of the last things I wrote, actually.
About what now?
The misappropriation of culture, Black culture.
Did you grab your beverage or did you grab the lemonade? Okay, you made the right choice.
Okay, well, while you're looking for it, there was one more thing I thought about, because we talked about this on another podcast, and it kind of made me think about the conversation we had about the millennials' lack of deference to gatekeepers, because they have their own, you can just go straight to the public or do their own thing, because they talked about, you study the legends and the icons that came before you. And I was like, but you may or may not do that if you don't feel like you need to. If you feel like you can just enter wherever you are, however you are, and there's nobody to tell you no. All I have to do is just go publish my own sound, song, video, whatever it is. And so I think that goes back to kind of this collective, not just Black amnesia, but collective amnesia, because I don't have to study the legends, because there's nobody to say that this is the person who has to mentor me. I can just do it myself.
Right. There's no filtering force.
I think
that you have. You have to find out about and learn about what they did, and then you're like, well, how did you get to this, that, and the other? Nowadays, people don't care how somebody else got to whatever they're doing, because they've got YouTube, they've got Google Hangouts, they've got all these things. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I think
That's
it's a good thing and a bad thing. It can, I mean, it's exciting in the way where that generation can create their own things. It's scary in the way that all this history that we have and all the things when we go back and we say, oh my God, look at this person, that I never knew about, or look how she's similar to me, or wow, I wish I could have sat at the feet of this person and asked questions. They're not going to have that anymore. And that's the part that's sad almost. Like every time we find someone, we find someone historically, like remember when we found out about, this is a silly example, but, well, it's not silly, but when we found out about like Debbie Allen and Felicia Rashad's mother and how badass she was, it was like, oh wow, I wish I could have, known her or known, whatever, but it seems like they won't have those aha moments anymore, or those nostalgic moments, and that's kind of sad to me.
And not having that guidance is, well, like you said, it is exciting for them to be kind of doing their own thing, but when you don't have that guidance, you keep touching that hot stove. Everybody has to touch that hot stove themselves. So if you have guidance, there's somebody there to tell you, somebody who you trust to say, you know what, baby, don't touch that hot stove. You're going to start off, at a higher level, already knowing that the stove is hot. So maybe your lesson is, don't have the handles on the stove sticking outward. Turn them inside. So then the next generation, they don't have to make either of those mistakes.
My parents say that to me all the time. They keep telling me, you keep recreating the wheel, and I wish you'd ask more questions. They both tell me that all the time, and I brush it off. It's my arrogance and my youth compared to them. Somebody just called.
Okay.
They called and they hung up. Yo, we can't. We are taking calls. Yeah, we are taking calls. I'm sorry we told y'all to hold off and then start chatting. Our number is 678-701-5805. Again, 678-701-5805. You guys can hit us up. Somebody called and then they hung up. We got some comments in the chat. Smart, you want to read them?
Yeah, we sure do. Let's see. We have Jeffrey, #1 fan. He said he's asking if he can call. He hopes. I'm sorry, my cursor's moving around here. He hopes Hustle doesn't try to corrupt him again. Like, oh yeah. If you want to achieve similar. Dang, gone it. This little thing jumps around. Sojo, can you read them? Because my thing is jumping around.
It's jumping for me too. But Evo is in the chat, and he says, well, if you want to receive similar results, you should consult with someone who's done it to avoid the pitfalls. Based on the way things have evolved, though, it has made it somewhat of a moot point with digging too far in the past. I really wish he'd elaborate on that last part where he says how the things have evolved. I want to know how you think the things have evolved. And just for people who are new listening to us tonight, because I know we got some retweets from Bossip and Madame Noir, because they are parented under Moguldom. You guys, if you click on the Q&A icon, that brings you to our question and answer part. That's our chat. And then Ilias is in here, and he's talking about the Jennifer Lopez aspect, because he's talking about Jennifer Lopez and the buttocks, and he says sisters have been having nice bodies, but when she showed hers, it seemed like it was a brand new thing. Like, I remember when she became the model for being Curvilicious.
I do too. I do too.
I mean, and even now, she has a booty shake twerk video, right? I don't even know the name of the song, but it's something.
I saw the trailer for it, but I never saw the whole thing.
Yeah, but she became the icon of curvy women, and I remember thinking, but everybody I know almost has a little curve to them. I mean, but I guess she made it hot.
Well, somebody designated her as the one who could be hot.
Same as Justin Bieber, Vanilla, and I want to slap whoever the hell looked at Vanilla Ice and said, this is it. Like, I really do. But yeah, somebody looked at them and said, we are going to put money and influence behind them.
Didn't the Alphas win that lawsuit? against Vanilla Ice?
For Ice Ice Baby? I don't know.
Yeah,
I don't know.
I don't
I
know.
did.
Buddha, why don't
Huh.
you? Let me stop.
You got sources.
Right.
Yeah, I'll take it too far.
All right, we got a phone call. Hold on. Hi, caller. State your name and where you're calling from.
Hi, this is Jeffrey.
Hi, Jeffrey.
From Ohio.
Hi, Jeffrey from Ohio. How are you, number one fan?
Good.
What do you think about our topic, bleaching black culture?
I actually never heard of black and bleach culture.
You haven't?
No.
Have you been listening to the show?
Yes. Yes, I've been hearing about that. Yes, I heard the show. Yes, I was watching the show.
Do you have any thoughts about what we were talking about? Who are your favorite music artists?
Michael Jackson, I like him, even though he's dead now. I also like, there's something I like there's, this guy mentioned on the show in the chat one time, Usher, even though you guys are like, I don't care about Usher no more, so yeah.
Do you listen to Justin?
Like
Do you listen to Justin Bieber?
No.
Why don't you listen to Justin Bieber?
I'm not much of a Justin Bieber fan.
Me neither. Well, do you have anything to? Huh?
I do see where he goes back.
Yes, she is. She's shimmying for you.
Shimmies.
All right. Well, thank you for calling, Jeff.
All right. It was good seeing y'all again. I'll call it. I'll call it again later. I mean, not later. I mean next week.
Okay. Bye-bye.
I'll keep on talking to you guys in the chat. See you. Bye.
Bye-bye.
That was Jeffrey. That's our number one fan.
Yeah, indeed.
And again, our number is 678-701-5805.
Okay, so one thing I do want to, another point that came up, toward the end, Nas says, we don't chase pop, pop chases us. And I immediately thought of MC Hammer. I immediately thought, because, you know, that was the time when everybody was, going in on MC Hammer for going pop.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know that he necessarily went pop so as he made music that pop liked. He was non-threatening. Right. He was fun. He wasn't, saying let's, fuck the police or telling these hood stories so much.
He had crossover appeal. He made music that had crossover appeal.
But I don't think he did it purposely. I think he was just making fun music, and it just happened that
it was fun music.
It was.
We used to jam at my house on Hammer. My mama included.
Pants were everything. I had multiple colors of MC Hammer.
I feel like I saw you in those pants.
You did see me in those pants.
People were wearing them when we were in high school. For sure.
I did wear those pants when we were in high school, and that's okay, because that was what I was supposed to do at that time. Evo said Vanilla Ice did lose that suit on the beat stealing from Under Pressure.
Okay.
So he did.
It was the Alphas that were like.
I thought the Alpha suit too. Yeah, I thought the Alpha suit for the Ice Ice Baby chant part, but I guess he stole. Listen, he stole everything basically.
Listen, the quote that I wrote down from the end, I forget the guy who said it. The mean people are taking our culture. They're doing mean things to us. That was funny to me.
Oh, well, let's talk about that, because he said, and I know exactly the part that you're talking about. What he said was that he didn't like, and I didn't write down his name. He said that he didn't like the term co-opting because it was a weak term. He said mean people taking our culture. We have enough power to not ever let it be taken.
Right. It's back to apathy.
So, okay, that's what I was gonna say. So how do we stop it from being taken? Do we hold on to it and make sure that it's sold with value? Like, how do we?
This is where it gets tricky, right? Because then it starts to get into the murky waters of respectability politics. And I'm only thinking that because I'm thinking ahead, because of the quote that came before that, or the topic right before that, was this idea that R&B is dying. And, you know, I was just listening to the radio in the car on the way home the other day, and I heard DJ Mustard talking about she won't ever get them 4 digits, and that was supposed to pass as R&B. I'm not listening to that.
4 digits. I don't understand how that works.
To take the passcode off the phone, so you can actually like go into the phone and like look at whatever it is that you want to look at somebody's phone and do. So she won't ever get the whole song. And I closed the browser now because I was going to share the lyrics.
Wait, we got a call. Hold on.
Okay.
Hi, caller. State your name and where you're from.
Hey, it's Evo from Chicago.
Evo!
Evo!
This Buddha's still talking to my
Here. I can't hear him.
Wait. Hold on, Evo. Can you hear him now? Say something, Evo.
Check. 1, 2, 1, 2.
Okay, we got you.
All right. So in the music aspect of the culture being stolen, basically, what are we trademarking? What are we keeping for ourselves? Are we just putting stuff out there and letting corporations and things like that capitalize on what we do? Do we own our masters in any of the music that we make?
Right.
Unless you're Prince or someone else that's seasoned in the game.
Right.
That is exactly what we're talking about. And for those of you who didn't hear, because I had to turn the mic, I wasn't sure how I was going to pick up on the recording, but he was saying, what do we own? Do we own our masters? Do we own the trademarking of those things?
Right.
So I definitely think that's a great point. Yeah.
That's a key point.
But I think even
we come up with, we don't trademark them. Logos that we come up with, we don't trademark them. When you write a song, you get an initial copyright with it.
Mm-hmm.
But you still need to go to the copyright office. You can file all the stuff online. It's not that expensive. Just people need to learn it.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that
It's off to the people that are actually creating these things. It's the company that's sponsoring it that's taking it off.
right. Exactly. And I mean, even when we talk about, like, because we haven't even talked about, this was something I put down at the very end, was just about podcasting, because Black podcasting is starting to become more popular. And I started to think about ownership stuff with that, and, you know, how we actually need to start looking at some of the business practices that we have. But you mentioned a lot.
Trademark the name.
Yeah, trademarking the name.
Trademark the name before before Clear Channel gets in this whole deal and trademarks your name, and then now all of a sudden you don't have a name, even if you've been doing it for so long. They've got the money to trademark stuff.
Mm-hmm.
You can have someone else jump on with a similar name, kind of like the whole "what's the T" type deal,
Mm-hmm.
where Rue's coming in, he's using the name, but Nick and Reggie had already had the name before Rue even got a podcast.
Right.
If things had been trademarked, you can send a cease and desist and call it a day.
And that's things that I think. What do you think, Evo? Do you think it's because I think all of this a lot of times is so brand new when we get into this that we don't even think about it when we start.
Mm-hmm.
You're just excited to get it going, get it pushing, get some listeners. It's the whole excitement point of it. And honestly, the business side of things are boring. But if you plan on monetizing it and making some sort of money off of it, you got to watch it. Same thing where, like, if you're playing music during your show or during your actual podcast, if you don't have the rights to that music and you're making money off of it, wait till they get a hold of that, and then you're going to get a letter suing you for wanting royalties for playing it.
Mm-hmm.
That's why people don't play Prince's stuff anymore.
Right.
Lawyers are on people.
Yeah, Prince is the genius of all things. Like, you can't find his stuff or use his stuff for anything.
The only thing you can find on YouTube with Prince is the Hall of Fame ceremony with Tom Petty when he comes up there and goes off on the guitar, but he's not singing at all. But other than that, any live concert material that's on YouTube with Prince gets ganked in at least a month.
Right.
That's the longest if it's up there that long.
Yep. I think he is the master at that, like making sure that his brand is his and his alone.
Yeah, because that's what he makes his money off of. And everyone has to look at themselves as a business.
Mm-hmm.
Guys do, it's a business. People come to listen to you, it's a business. When you get sponsors and things are being paid out, you've got to have the correct legal paperwork because someone's going to come wanting their cut. If it's not Uncle Sam, somebody else will be coming in for it.
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
Well, I'm glad you called and dropped that knowledge, Eva. I was hoping you were going to call.
That's awesome.
All right, ladies, you have a good one.
Okay, talk to you later, Evo. Thanks. Bye.
Listen to Lovey does a lot of stuff about, owning your own online material. And one of the things that has come up throughout the years, and Sojourner, we've like blogged a long, long time ago, is that oftentimes the laws aren't there when something starts.
They don't evolve. It takes a long time for them to evolve with the times.
Right. The laws come into play once there has almost been a precedent set. Like, we're going to set this precedent based on these old laws. Now we're going to make a new law based on the decisions we made on using some slightly related law.
Right.
And that gets people screwed, basically.
The related part to that, though, is, and this kind of piggybacks on what Evo was talking about, and also our earlier conversation, it's hard to learn from people who don't know themselves. And it's like, if we're talking about kind of breaking in to places where we weren't allowed at one point, despite how influential you become later, there's no one there to teach you the ropes in the first place. And so maybe you're learning the ropes as you go, but if you come in much later and you're a person who doesn't look back and you don't seek a mentor, then you still don't know either. So it's kind of like, you can't just get grandfathered into understanding the business side of these things. You have to definitely seek it, but you also have to know that you should seek it.
Know that you should seek it, and I also think that we need to be more open and networking with each other, because I think that sometimes we become afraid of what's going to happen if we reach out to people and ask questions, that we do often end up reinventing the wheel or burning ourselves repeatedly, because we don't want to we don't want anybody to infringe on what we've got going on. So I think that we can, and I see the face that you're making, but I'm saying, like, with new things that happen, like, as we create relationships, it's easier to ask questions. But like when blogging first came along, that was kind of organic, and you better get a Creative Commons, thing on your website so nobody will snatch your stuff. But it wasn't like one of those things where, hey, I'm a new blogger, what question should I ask about making sure that my stuff is protected so nobody will come and put it on their own? It was almost one of those things where, oh shit, my entire blog is on somebody's site under somebody else's name. What now?
Right,
so,
right.
That's what I was talking about. But the face you made was for what, Smart?
It was because it's funny that if we find something, it's funny the things we will give away and the things we hoard and who we hoard from versus who we give to. And I think that goes back to the whole, bleaching black culture thing. So, okay, we won't, in a small group of people, share our, how we made it in blogging or how we developed the podcast. But if somebody comes and says, I need a game to play on my podcast, somebody is liable to suggest guess the race to them, a white person. They're liable to suggest those types of things to that person. Yeah. So, but
like, oh yeah, hey, why don't you do this?
Right. Exactly. Yeah. And so I just think when you don't have esteem, and you don't have confidence, and I guess when you don't find yourself equal to the person you're asking that is asking you a question, you bend over backwards to help them. But if you find that the person isn't equal, like, okay, let's say 3 other black women came to us and said, oh, we'd like to get into podcasting, how do you do it? I know we would probably actually be friendly, so maybe we're not a great example. Right. But you do know that in other situations, the group who's been doing it is not going to be so forthright and sherry with the new person. What's that?
Right. To be
I use the word power because that was one of the things that came to my mind, the power differential and how the decisions that people make based on power.
And that's one of the things that I always liked about, like, Rod and Phenom and Insanity and those, when they actually said, or even they say during their podcast, y'all, we made these things, we made these mistakes in the beginning, so y'all didn't have to. And so, I remember they took out a whole segment on like equipment, or they start talking about things and saying, we did these things, or even when they, like, I remember when excuse me, Karen was on our site and she started talking about, y'all need to throw up that donate button. Why are y'all messing around with the donate button? Throw it up, see what happens. And usually, sometimes people will say, well, wait a minute, if my donate button is up and their donate button is up and people have to decide if they're going to donate here and donate there, well, I'm not going to tell them about that donate button. Well,
right.
It's one of those things where there are things that you can share with your own, to help them so that they don't have to struggle along the way. And so that somebody else won't come in and say, hey, well, why don't we buy your whole podcast so you don't have to worry about anything, and now they're screwed because they were thinking it was the greatest thing ever. Because I'm pretty sure those other larger podcasts have gotten same offers and have had hesitation. So talk to them, see why they had hesitation. So, I mean,
Yeah. But, yeah, to Lady Buddha's point, I'm sorry I had to step off for a second. It does come to the power. And I think often we think about what sharing with this other person can get me, as opposed never mind. I take that back. I'm sorry. I got myself confused. At any rate, we are approaching an hour, and we usually do this show for about an hour. I had wanted to just briefly touch on my general disdain for Lena Dunham, but I'm just going to let that float out there and let you guys.
You know what? You can put it out there, and we'll just do like this. And that's our disdain collectively.
Collective disdain. Yeah. So, and I will say this, and I said it, I think, in the chat room of the Black Guy Who Tips or one of the, I don't know, somebody's show, that the only reason that broad is famous is because she gives pasty, badly built, crooked tooth broads like her hope. That's it. Wow. That is the only reason. She's not a great talent. She's not a great talent, and she's not a great talent.
It's funny. I tell you, the funny thing, Smart, is that I watched one episode of Girls, and I made it a point not to ever look at anything that, like I don't know what she looks like anymore, except for that one episode of Girls, because I said, you know what, she's gonna fly off, and I'm not supporting this. So I don't even know like what she.
That was a good. I was
watching that show too.
I watched it, and actually I was a guest on Phenom's show at the end of last season, and I think we all agreed that we hate all of them, and we watch because we want bad things to happen. Like, we want them to get on crack, we want them to catch Ebola, we want all those things for them. We want, I don't know, for Papa Pope to come in
and breed them for filth.
Yeah, breed them for filth.
And catch them like B613 and lock them in a.
Exactly. We want all the bad things for those girls. Yeah.
I like how you caught yourself and said girls.
Girls.
I'm just holding all y'all in the light.
Anyway, you holding us up in Buddhist prayer?
Mm-hmm.
You chanting for us tonight?
I am.
So, for those of you who have been listening or watching this whole time, we were talking about bleaching black culture. Notice how I just turned back into that. Sojo, do you want to tell them about where they can get the movie and whatnot?
Oh, yeah. You guys get a 30% discount if you put in the code WWMPOD, that's WWMPOD, at MoguldomStudios website, which is MoguldomStudios.com. Normally it's $9.99, but you guys can get it for a cool $6.99 if you use our discount code WWMPOD. And definitely check out their other films as well. You know, we enjoy having them as a sponsor because they keep giving us great products to talk about. So.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And with that, I guess we'll start to wrap everything up. Ladies, do you have any cheers for anyone? No? Going?
Yeah, I'm going to give cheers to Sojo, who was the maid of music at my wedding. Why are you? What's going on over there?
No, because I have a story about you with that. Go ahead.
Uh-oh.
She
She froze.
froze.
Okay, she froze. So I'm gonna tell you about. I don't know if I said it on the last podcast, but I was her maid of music, which means for the listening audience that I played the music for the ceremony. Their theme was Earth, Wind, and Fire. And so she, we had our our wedding rehearsal, and again, this is Bride Chilla, so she doesn't
No,
say,
not right now.
"Uh-oh, I think she's back." Okay, Buddha, you back? Oh,
No,
you froze. Go ahead and tell the story. I started telling my story about you. Go ahead.
Oh, I don't have a story. What is the last thing y'all heard? I just gave my contact
That I was
information.
the maid of music. And
Oh,
then,
go ahead. Go ahead, because I don't know. Yeah, go ahead.
well, I was saying that your music was the Earth, Wind, and Fire theme, so I was super nervous because, of course, I didn't want to mess anything up for the ceremony, except for at the wedding rehearsal, I accidentally played your song for when the grooms, when your party came out, and you were so chill. You did this behind the door. You just kind of leaned like, and looked at me and leaned back. You didn't fuss at me. You didn't say, "Don't mess this up on my day." Like, you were just like, lean, get it together, lean.
Oh, wow. Yeah, I wasn't gonna, I'm Bride Chilla. I gotta live up to my name to the very last minute.
That was funny, but the ceremony was amazing. It was beautiful. So, yeah.
Thank you. All right. So I don't know.
Contact information.
Okay, I'll try again just to make sure that y'all heard both of my cheers. It was for Sojo and for Kelsey for being an amazing maid of honor. But then my contact information, I did change my Twitter handle. Y'all were right. It is NDC HARP. So NDC harp, like the instrument. And you can still find me on my blog at Coco Studio. So COCO Studio, CocoStudio.com. And I do have a new one up right now. What about y'all?
Sojo, what about you?
I changed it on our page too. Well, actually not on the website, but on our little description.
Okay.
I have an echo. My cheers is for Dr. Frederick Humphreys, who is former president of Florida Agricultural and Mechanical University. And mainly because of the conversation I told you guys about, told Smart about on episode 76 about at Lady Buddha's ceremony. At her reception, the table that we were sitting at was all FAMU alumni, and we started talking about how he actually came and recruited us almost like a football team. Like the program, he went out and, wanted us to come there or whatever. And I just wanted to give cheers to him because as I was looking up his information, he was Tennessee State's president from 1974 to 1985. And then he came to FAM from 1985 to 2001. And under his leadership, we grew from, in 1985, 5,100 people to 9,876 in 1993, and that's when I came. Mm-hmm. And then by 2001, we had 12,316, and that definitely was the Renaissance era of FAMU. So I definitely, especially since it was our homecoming last weekend, I wanted to give him cheers. So that's my cheers, and you guys can find me on Twitter at SOJOXOXO. That's it.
I don't. You didn't do the Rattler strike.
Oh, my bad. Because I can't do it like him. You got to Google him because sometimes he's a little inebriated when he used to do the whole, when the roll of the thunder or whatever. But anyway, we strike and strike and strike again.
Okay, sorry, Miss Mark.
Right?
She had Howard homecoming, so we can get some.
Already had that.
Calm it down over there. Calm it down.
I'm going to have my mama on to tell you the story about how I told her I was going to be a Howard Bison. That's a long story, but I'll have her just for you.
Okay. I don't necessarily have cheers. Maybe I'll do cheers to an idea. So last Friday was Halloween. I went to a Halloween party, and I want to give a cheers to everybody who was at that party. I won't say where it is because I don't want you guys stalking me or anything. Not, y'all not gonna stalk me, whatever. I won't say where it was, but everybody had on costumes, and I'm talking couples costumes, elaborate costumes. Black people just then went and got themselves together for Halloween on a level that I hadn't seen since Georgetown. Like, if anybody familiar, you know that it goes down in Georgetown for Halloween. So I would like to shout everybody out who was at that party. It was in Virginia, so if anybody's listening and was at a party, a costume party in Virginia, you did a really, really good job. With regard to where I can be reached, I certainly can be reached on the Twitter at think_p_smart. For those of you who are watching, either live or on YouTube or on our webpage, it is actually across my face at the bottom, across my neck. You can reach the show on Twitter at Whiskey Wine Moon. If you are listening, maybe you're a passenger in someone's car and they're playing this, or you're beside someone on public transportation and they have cheap headphones and you can hear everything that's being said. Feel free to look us up on Stitcher, Podomatic, iTunes. We are Whiskey, Wine, and Moonshine. Thank you very much. Thanks to everyone in the chat room. Thanks to all of our callers. And cheers. Good night.
Cheers.
Cheers.